Hey there everybody, my name is Kat Bowser. I'm your resident fantasy therapist. Welcome back to my channel. Those of you here for the first time, welcome. My name is Kat Bowser. I'm a licensed therapist. I'm also a writer working on my first two novels, one the start of a series, one a standalone. And on my channel, I like to talk about what I consider to be the heart of writing. That's the characters. The heart of the characters is their psychology. So that's the angle I like to take with everything I talk about on my channel. So this week, I'm a little late. My plan originally was to record on Monday and get it uploaded on Tuesday. I ended up having to delay recording to Tuesday, and then Tuesday afternoon, we had to go to the ER for my husband. He's doing fine, but that's why this is late, so I'm sorry. So today, I wanted to do a tag that Joey Paul was kind enough to link me in, and that is when the writing bug bit you. So this is essentially where you kind of talk about your writing origin story, so to speak. I think most of the people I would really love to do this tag have already been tagged, but I would like to extend it to anyone else that has not, because I think it's fun to look back on where our writing journey started. So that's being said, we'll dig into mine. So when it comes to stories and writing, I've always written. One of my things has always been I was writing before I knew how to write. As a little kid, I would draw little comic strips, and I would go to whomever would want to listen to me, and I would talk to them about here's what's happening, here's this character, here's this one. So I would basically have like a 6-panel comic strip, and I would give them like a 10 to 15 page story. And then once I got into first grade, that's when I learned to write. And to me, it was like opening a candy store. It's like all these thoughts that are in my head, I can now put them on paper. But naturally, I mean, obviously my first stories were not that great. I mean, I remember in elementary school, I wrote a short story for school, and I think it was like 3 or 4 pages, and it was second grade, so my second grade teacher told me, you know, this is good, but we asked for a short story, and I told her this is short, because I was writing 10 to 15 page stories. But they didn't really have, you know, all the finesse that you learn about writing, like plot and syntax and all that stuff. It was basically kind of like a mind dump. I had all these ideas and I would just jot them down. So I think my first real story that like had a plot and, you know, a beginning, a middle, and an end, I probably wrote about 4th grade. I don't remember how long it was. I think it was about 15, 20 pages, front and back, like longhand. So I think that equates to maybe about a 25-page story, because I used to write like really small. That's actually one reason I like to type, is because my handwriting is horrible. It used to be kind of a challenge for me. How small can I make my writing before my teachers can't read it? I'm sure they hated me for that. Anyway, so my first story was a contemporary one, which I always find funny because for the most part, I don't like contemporary anymore, but you know, what are you gonna do? At that time, I was reading a lot of American Girl books, and it really showed in this story. It was essentially my version of an American Girl book, without any of the research. But that was kind of the first one. After that, you know, it's funny. I got into fan fiction about junior high. And I'd always kind of done it. Like, I used to have an old diary that I would jot down, like, things I wish that some of my cartoon characters would do, or episodes I wish they would do, and I didn't know that was fan fiction. But about 7th grade, I started to do, like, Thundercat fan fiction, and I think that was my first real, like, long story. I mean, I think it was like, I think that one tapped out at like 40 to 50K, which for me was a big deal. I still have it, actually. And you know, it's not horrible. It's not as horrible as I thought it would be, but it's definitely not something that I would try and publish or make original now. But I appreciate it because it connected me to a community. I was in a community with other Thundercat fans, other fans that did fan art and fan fiction, and they gave me feedback. And that was like, I think that was like my first real introduction to like feedback. Like, telling you what works and what doesn't, and getting input from other writers and other writers that were much older than me. Like, I still remember I got feedback, very detailed feedback, from a fellow fan who was, at that time, I was about 13. She was, I think, 30. So to me, that, as far as I was concerned, that was like getting advice from an expert. And I remember it was my first introduction to the sandwich method: positive, negative, positive, negative. And I still like to use that method when I talk about books and stories, because I think there's usually something positive in whatever you're reading. And I just think it pays to give tribute to that. And that's what she did. She told me, you know, here's what's really good. Here's where you're faltering. Here's what you might can try to fix it. And I took that advice. The other thing that I did is I realized where my weaknesses are. Like, my weaknesses was writing action. Like, I just was not good at it. I always loved the psychology of characters. Like, I think when my favorite TV shows when I was a kid was the Disney Afternoon. Those were my favorite shows. And part of the reason is because the characters were nuanced. They had backgrounds and depth to them. And I used to try and figure out why some of them acted the way they did. And so when I wrote fan fiction, I focused mainly on that. Like, why do the characters act like they do? Why are they doing the things that they do? I didn't know if that was psychology then, but it pretty much was. And anyway, so I started to realize there were some shows like Dragon Ball and other action-oriented shows that I used to watch that I wanted to do fan fiction for, but I knew you couldn't write a story without having some kind of action in it. It just seemed wrong. So I started to watch movies and read books that had action in them, and I would study them. And so I actually started by trying to describe an action scene in a movie, and I would write it down. And I got better at it. It's definitely one of those things. I definitely got better at it as I got older and started to read more nuanced stories. Like, when I was a kid, you know, you had your favorite books, and that's what I would stick to. But as I got older and I started to explore other stories and other books, I got better at it. So I will always say that fan fiction has really helped me as a writer, because it forced me out of my comfort zone. For starters, most of the fan fictions I wrote, the main characters were male. I'm female. And when I first started writing, I wrote my male characters just like a female character. I didn't take into account just way people might process things differently than me. And obviously that's something that changed as I got older and I began to explore different character traits, like the stoic character. I started to explore the comic relief character, you know, things like that. It all started with like these stereotypes that we like to try and avoid in our writing now, but that's where it started. You start with those and then you build from it. So do I write the completely stoic character now? No, but I do write a character that sometimes is stoic. I don't write characters that are completely all comic relief, but I do write characters that have some comic relief elements to them. And that's just how you learn. Now, when it came to my current work in progress, I always say I started getting the roots of it in like 6th grade, and I've just been kind of developing it and building on it ever since then, like little things here and there. As to what made me decide to actually finally sit down and do it, like finally write the thing, for the longest time, I kind of had this thought that, yes, I want to be a writer, but I never thought I'd be able to. Traditional publishing scared the crap out of me. Like, when I looked at things that people would have to do to get traditionally published, and then I started reading horror stories about people that went into traditional publishing and the horrible things that happened. Obviously now, I know that some of those aren't true. Some of them might be in certain circumstances, but my thing was I always kind of knew my stories were a little different than kind of what I'd say the mainstream would want to publish. And so I kind of thought, well, nobody's going to want to read it. And then I started sharing it with some of my friends. They're like, you need to write this. You need to write this. So I did. I started writing it. And it's been a journey. Like, I'll be honest, I wanted to be further along on it than I am currently. But as I've started writing it, I've been discovering things like, what I discovered like last week is it's in the wrong point of view. So I have to rewrite the whole darn thing. But I started to rewrite it, and it's flowing so much easier, and it's so much clearer, and it's so much better. So writing is constantly a learning process for me. And I think we learn from each other. We learn from reading, we learn from other media. So I enjoy learning new things and trying new things. So I think that's kind of where I am right now is, you know, this is my writing journey. It's it's going to be my debut novel, but I'm proud of it, and I'm happy with how it's going despite all the setbacks. And I love sharing the ideas and little teasers with you guys. So that's been kind of my writing origin story. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave me some comments below. I always love to read them. As always, if you guys have suggestions, let me know, and I will get to them as soon as I can. I try to upload twice a week, sometimes a little more. Once at the beginning of the week, once at the end of the week. And if you guys don't want to miss when I upload, make sure you ring that bell so that you don't. And until next time, I hope you guys stay safe and have a good one.